Hi guys, so this will be a video to help you get through doing the Scratch 3 assignment, which is variables. Variables isn't a hard concept, so we should be able to get through this pretty quick. Um, so if you have Scratch open, like I do, you can see here that we got our orange circle for variables. And if you go to yours, you'll have a variable called my variable. Just go ahead, right click on that and push delete variable. Because we want to create our variable from scratch so I can explain some other things to you. Now, a variable, like I said, simple concept. We know about the RAM in our computer being where we store information for programs. And basically, each of those memory addresses in our RAM has some kind of long number for a name, basically long binary number. And so we don't want to have to remember that. So instead, we create variables, excuse me, to store values under what's called an identifier, which is basically just a name. And we store these values so that we can easily bring them up later. And we always name variables after what they are, to make it, again, even easier, because programs or just code in general can get pretty difficult to read, especially if you don't write your code in a way that's intended to be read. So let's get started here. We're going to hit make a variable, and this is why I had you delete the existing variable instead of just renaming it. So we're going to name our variable health, and then you have two options. You have for all sprites and you have for this sprite only. And this actually kind of introduces a concept that in programming we have, and it's called public variables and private variables. And a public variable generally can be accessed by like all of the things in a project. And a private variable can only be accessed by the object that it's created for. So that's kind of what this is doing right here. That's the concept this is introducing, and that's just a simple way to explain it. We want our health variable to be for all sprites because as far as the problem solving process goes, um, I'll identify the problem for you. You need to create 8 total sprites, 4 good or positive sprites, and 4 bad or negative sprites. Um, and when you click on the good sprite, it should increase the value of the health variable by some number. And if you click on a bad sprite, it should decrease the value of the health variable, which in Scratch, at least in this case, a variable is just a number. However, understand that in real programming, variables can store pretty much any kind of information. Um, I guess in Scratch they just keep it numbers for simplicity's sake. But when we actually program our robots, it uses a slightly modified version of Scratch, and you'll see um, some of those other variables come into play, or those other types of variables come into play. So anyway, we're going to make it for all sprites because we want every sprite to be able to access the health variable, because if every sprite has access to the health variable, then every sprite can change the health variable. So we're going to hit OK, and now we've got all these different options for things we can do to the variable. This bubble here is the variable, or is a representation of it, such that like I can take this bubble and drop it into any place where like I have a number. Show you an example here. Now that doesn't make a lot of sense necessarily, but anywhere that I have a number, I can drop health. Like another example, if I have a motion block, I can drop it in there. So variables don't have to be for something like health. You could use a variable for something like speed, and then it makes a lot more sense to put a speed variable in there. What's cool about a variable is you can change its value pretty much on the fly or using code, which makes our life easier. Now you'll notice that next to my health variable, I have this checkbox checked, and I'm not sure if it will be for you. You do want it to be checked though. So back in the variables section, you're going to click the checkbox next to health, if it's not already checked, of course, And you'll notice that what that checkbox does, and this is true of all of the other pre-made variables as well, this checkbox lets you see it in the scene. And there's actually 3 ways you can display this, and you switch it by double clicking. So from here, I can see health. If I double click it, I can still see health in like a simplified way. And then if I double click again, I've got like a slide bar for it. And then if I double click again, it's back to this one. I think I could leave it at this one or maybe the second one. And that would be the best way to show this. Other ways to show it would be like if I wanted to have the cat say how healthy he was every time the health variable changed. But I'm not going to do that right now because it's outside of the scope of this particular little project. So first things first, I said we needed 8 total sprites. So for this project, we'll just go over here, choose a sprite, and I'll pick something simple, bananas. Bananas are good for you. They're packed with potassium. Hooray. I think that's vitamin K, but don't, you know what? This is valuable use of your time. Ah, it is vitamin K. I'm glad that my memory is serving me today. Anyway, create your bananas or whatever your first good sprite is going to be. And now we're programming the bananas, as you can see right here. So first off, we need an event. And the event that we want to use is going to be when this sprite is clicked. I'll just drop that right there. I'll zoom in a little bit too. Now, when this sprite is clicked, what do we want to do? So as part of our problem-solving process, we could just say, okay, well, when I click on the bananas, my plan that I'm going to develop is to see, or I want to change the value of health and increase it because bananas are good. So I have 2 options to affect the health variable. I have set health and change health. Now, in the last project where you were animating your name, hopefully you learned how Scratch views the word set versus the word change. And you should be able to figure out which one of these should go up here, and the answer is that it should be change. The reason it's not set is because, well, or because if I said set health to 5, actually, I'll show you why it's not set, just in case you need that. So if I say change health by 5, or let's do set health first. If I say set health to 5, and I click the bananas, my health goes to 5. But then if I click the bananas again, my health doesn't change. It just sets it straight to 5. I don't want that. So get rid of that. I want change health by 5. So now every time I click my bananas, I get 5 more added to my health. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to the slider bar here and put that back to 0. There we go. And I'll use the cat actually as a resetter really quick. I'll switch to my cat and give him an event. I'll just say when the flag is clicked that he should set the health to 0. So that'll let me reset it. I can click the bananas a whole bunch of times, and then I click the green flag and it puts it back to 0. That way I don't have to mess with the slider bar anymore. That's just an easy little thing to do. And now I'll actually go ahead and make real quick, just in case you need to follow the general process again, I'll make up one of the bad sprites. But then after that, I'll leave it up to you. This is a pretty quick and easy assignment. So, yeah, I hope you guys won't spend too long on this one. Although creativity can be fun. Maybe you guys will get bored being all quarantined and stuff. All right. So let's choose something bad. Well, if we're going to stick with the healthy food theme, then I'll pick the cheesy puffs and say that they're bad. And so first off, I need my event. So I grab the when this sprite is clicked. Then I simply go down to my variables and I say set health to, and I put in, or sorry, not set health. Ooh, I'm tired. All right, change health by, and I just put -5 this time to counteract the bananas. And then step 3 of the problem solving process being execute the plan, I test my code out. So click the bananas, gave me 5 points. Click the cheese puffs, gave me negative 5 points. Click it again, now I'm doing negative. I got heart disease now. Anyway, I think you guys get the idea at this point. Um, you don't have to have the reset thing like I did on the cat. That was just something I did because it takes like 2 seconds and it makes it a little easier when you're trying to test stuff to make sure it works. But that is going to be how we do our third Scratch assignment, which is Scratch 3 variables on Canvas, if you haven't already seen that. So, um, thanks for watching. Please get the assignment in, and I will happily get it graded. And everything will be just fine in the next 2 weeks. Bye, guys.